thưa quý quan khách, kính thưa quý đồng hương cùng anh chị em, chúng tôi trân trọng giới thiệu ông Chủ tịch Cộng đồng Người Việt Quốc gia tị nạn Cộng sản tiểu bang Oregon phát biểu trước quý quan khách, đồng hương và anh chị em.
By the China tent, the Vietnamese Communist government. This is why we are here today.
Had a very rich history of being an independent state, despite all the false allegations of the Chinese government that has tried to convince us and the world. There are facts that just cannot be negated. In 1949, Nepal used a treaty with Tibet when applying for a position in the United Nations. The world's largest stained glass map in the world is in Boston, made in 1933, contains Tibet as a separate entity on the map, apart from China. And in 1947, a New Delhi conference for Asians that was addressed by Gandhi. Tibet is visually featured among other countries such as Switzerland. The legitimacy of Tibet cannot be doubted to believe anything else. And what we have to consider here is that not only was Tibet a legitimate country, compared to the West going through World War I and the destruction it faced, the people of Tibet had a functioning state. They paid tax. Society was going as it always had. There wasn't a democracy, but everything wasn't perfect, but people survived and they were fed. These facts cannot be forgotten, especially with the allegation that Tibet was a serf kingdom where suffering only happened. When the Chinese first entered Tibet in the 20th century, they came with Mao's message of liberty and modernization. That they only wanted to help the very backwards Tibet, and slowly using these methods, they creeped in and finally took over in 1959. The Dalai Lama, Tibet's spiritual and political leader, fleeing persecution, he continued the plight of the Tibetan people into exile. The only hope of Tibet left and continued his message across the globe with recognition and respect. Since 1959, it's been a non-violent struggle despite the fact that genocide has hit the Tibetan people because of the invasion, with at least 1.2 million dead and counting with current times. Not to mention the cultural genocide, another systematic crackdown to disintegrate Tibetan identity. Even with all this, the Tibetan struggle lives on. Major protests since then have sparked in 1989 and 2008, to which the effects still live on today, with the recent self-immolation done by young monks in eastern Tibet. What this goes to show are that these activists were born under Chinese rule.